Hey, everybody, I'm Sean Bagby, and you're listening to the APTA Academy of Leadership and Innovations podcast, a place where leadership sparks possibility and innovation lights the path ahead. Each month, we speak to a trailblazer shaping the story of physical therapy. And today's conversation is with a friend of mine, David Harris. And before Mr. Harris introduces himself, I want to just quickly tell you that if you want to talk about like the most influential people in my life and my leadership journey, it is Amy Smith, Amy Lavko, Emily Becker, and David Harris, without a doubt. And David has been such a friend and mentor and someone I can lean on that I am grateful for his time and his journey. And we get along really well, which is unusual. And I'll let David go ahead and introduce himself too, so you can know more about him before we get started.
All right, thanks, Sean. The feeling's mutual here. Mentorship goes both ways in every relationship, and so I appreciate the friendship. And it's been a long time. I think we're approaching the 2 decade mark here. That's pretty amazing. That's one of the things I've found with APTA that's been great over my 27 years is really the friendships and the learning that you get in every conversation. To introduce myself, David Harris. I've been a PT assistant for 27 years and a couple of months now, so hard to believe, approaching that 30-year mark. I've had a remarkable career. Been able to, as a clinician for many, many years, worked on becoming an excellent clinician. Did a couple of different certifications, a lot of different education, and felt like I was, uh, you know, got really good at that side of things. And then I stepped into leadership. I was very fortunate through my career to have people that took a chance on me, who saw something that I really probably didn't see at the time and wouldn't have been noticed at the time. But they took me under their wing, and it just opened up so many possibilities in my career to where today, I'm the chief executive officer for ProPT out of Central Valley, California. So we run from pretty much Modesto down through Bakersfield. I've spent the majority of my career in private practice, working with. I'm in my fourth company now, so I haven't switched around a lot, but just really when I switched, it was when the runway was done at one place and there was opportunity at another. But just have had such a great experience traveling the country, been able to work in over 30 states, and it's just been remarkable. My hobby, if you will, is really APTA, FSBPT, and really other sides of the profession. APTA advocating for the profession and really just trying to make sure that we're at the table as physical therapist assistants, and then with the licensure board or FSBPT, really going the opposite direction and in ways because it's all about public protection and understanding how do we do the best job of making sure the people we're serving get everything that they need. But I also believe that that is also protection for PTs and PTAs, making sure that we have guardrails, right? And that we can actually do what we need to do, provide the best service possible, and go home at night and sleep well. So that's a little bit about me. If you want to know more, you can prod me with some other questions.
I mean, yeah, it's not hard, it's not hard to prod. I can probably just pick a page. But let's start on what I think is the most relevant thing, and that is service within the APTA. Because I think like that's how you and I both got started. That's how we grew in our careers, not only within the association but external to the association. So first off, like, tell me why APTA matters to you.
I learned very early in my career that if you want things to be better, not only for the people that we're serving, the patients, but for the therapist in general, you have to actually understand and know where we're going. and be able to help mold and shape that. So APTA for me started out, I mean, many years ago. I got involved locally. I got involved in our local district in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and quickly became just excited about what was going on. The conversations, the people that had the same passion for the profession, and it led me to begin to take on leadership roles within the district, and served a couple of terms as a district chair, and really got more people engaged and involved. And the more that I saw people coming in, we started out and we would have meetings with maybe 8 or 10 people, and these were, usually quarterly meetings and things like that. And then you turn around, all of a sudden we started bringing in some decent speakers and things of that nature. And we started seeing 30, 50, 70, and started to really just kind of get more people involved and engaged. And that kind of led me to start attending the state meetings, and then on into some of the national meetings, such as like CSM, PPS, and things like that. And just being around people that were like-minded, that really didn't necessarily agree all the time, and at that time didn't agree a lot of the times, and seeing that I felt like I had the ability to make an impact on that. And I feel like I have a good ability at two things, and that would be listening and people development. And those two things have helped me to bring people together over the years, whether it be from a professional standpoint or an advocacy or volunteer standpoint. So why APTA? I mean, it's our national organization. It's the representation of physical therapy. And whether you're a PT, PTA, a student, a researcher, educator, whatever, and now legislators, right? There are some PTs and PTAs in the legislative world. I think it's bringing people together, and that's what I saw as a goal for APTA. And I think it's still a goal today. And do we get it right every time? No, but I'm a firm believer that the more people you get at the table, the better you're going to do. And we have 330,000 or so physical therapists and 120,000 or so physical therapist assistants in the country, and our association has around 100,000 members. So how can we draw in more licensees to understand and embrace the ideas that what is it, APTA, we're better together, right? It's been around for years. Um, there is strength in numbers, and that's a big part of it. The other side is just the reward. I get so much more out of it than I give. And it's not the meetings themselves, it's the people, the friendships, the relationships. I know if I pick up the phone and call you at 2 a.m., you may be a little irritated, but you'll answer the phone. And I think the same with me. So, that to me is kind of that bigger meaning of this profession is, how do we bring each other together, regardless of our setting, regardless of, if we're competitors or not, we're still going to come together and try to work things out.
Yeah, and for anyone that doesn't realize, Harris and I have been known to text each other at 2, 3 a.m. It's not abnormal. And there used to be a text that would go through about 5:30 between a group of us that were involved in the association for years. And that's some of the things I look back on in life and just I love. And I'll kind of highlight the character of David as well. Um, I can remember like when my father died, looking up in the church and I see his face, and it just like he drove halfway across the country to be there for me in a moment. He and Chris Garland both, and like it's such a testament to like it is the work we do is important, but the relationships you make will foster a life far better than what you have today if you're willing to be open. And we don't always agree on everything. And Harris and I see stuff very differently, and like that's fine because like at the end of the day, we found ways to work together and try to strengthen the association and what we believe in. So with that being said, what is you and I got involved in the house, And I think the House of Delegates is probably one of the most misunderstood things within the APTA. Give us what your experience has been in the House and why you think it's so important to where we go in the profession.
Well, I mean, bottom line is it guides the association. I mean, the House basically guides the association and directs the profession and how we think it should go. And so you've got 426, I believe, delegates that come together on an annual basis in an in-person meeting that they go through different motions and things of that nature to try to shape and drive the profession forward. But it's so much more than that. It's year round, right? It's there are meetings and calls and conferences year round where these folks take their time. And it's volunteer. So they take their time because they care about the profession and the direction it's going. And you bring 426 opinions together, and somehow every year we're able to kind of come together and come out with different opportunities for the profession to go forward. And I sat in the House for many years in the gallery, and I feel like you and I both had this privilege of being a part of the association and the House. It was a pivotal point, and it was a point of bringing people together. And I think the more we come together, the more powerful we are outside of the association. And there's zero sense and zero advantage to fighting amongst yourselves. There's all the advantage of the world in coming together and actually trying to make change that will positively impact not only our therapists, but every facet of the profession, but also the patients. Because we know, I mean, we're only serving a very small percentage of the folks that could actually benefit from physical therapy. So House to me is it's a year-round thing, but it's also something that gives us the ability to try to make the profession better on an annual basis. So it that House, I think it is misunderstood, but it's also usually a couple of days that are typically 18, 20-hour days, and they're full. They're not, I can recall being in the lobby, and you always had to make your coffee in your room because the shops weren't open yet. And you're meeting 2 or 3 hours before House starts, going over motions and different changes. And really at the end of the day, when we walk out, we all stand side by side and we're at agreement.
Sorry, I forgot to mute myself. But yeah, 100% I agree that like the house is an amazing experience that leads us into a lot of different areas. What has been from your perspective of service? And I think you talked about being in the gallery, and we started out as PTA Caucus reps, which is where we sat and really weren't in that deliberative body that was able to vote, but we had influence via these beautiful devices right here and conversations where we could connect with delegates to help influence that. And I think what is the advantage of like to you of involvement, even if you're not serving, like being aware of what's going on in the house and talking to your elected officials that are representing you? Why is that such an important voice
Well, I
for?
mean, it's what you just said. It's a voice, and a delegate's responsibility is to listen to everybody, right? I mean, to basically take all opinions and try to come to the best decision possible. So, whether you're in the gallery or sitting in front of a Zoom screen or somewhere else, having your voice at the table and then understanding as well, I think how the profession works and where it's going and it's not about agreement or disagreement. It's about understanding where the profession's going. And I think every physical therapist assistant, they have a unique perspective. And they're able to actually provide that if they can provide that to a delegate or someone at the state level or chapter level or even national level, then they're able to actually, I think, be a part of something bigger than themselves. And to me, that's the biggest side of it. And that's why I love the profession so much. And really the association side of it is we get to be a part of something that's bigger than one person or even 1,000 people.
So with that being said, what's been the most memorable experience you've had at the House of Delegates?
For me, there are a lot of them, but I think the biggest thing for me is over the years seeing some of the motions pass that brought PTs and PTAs closest and brought us all to the table as leaders, not as licensees. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. But I would say the one biggest thing was the first time that I sat on the House floor and put in a vote for an RC, because that was, PTAs were on, were able to be on the floor back in the 90s, and that ended in the late 90s. Just a few years ago, as the PTA Caucus, now the PTA Council, um, we were able to come together as colleagues, and that was a huge a moment for me personally, because I knew it meant that all of this work that we're all doing, regardless of your licensure, all of this work that we were all doing was bringing people closer together so we could continue to advocate in larger numbers.
Yeah, 100%. And as one of the PTAs that now sits on a delegation, obviously there are several of us now. We're still in a minority, but there's several of us that were at the House. There were PTAs that have been elected in state positions to serve on that. It was quite gratifying to have both experiences, to vote as a PTA caucus delegate myself, and then to vote as a delegate from Indiana, which is it's two different worlds because the PTA caucus was very much a consensus world of we wanted to have consensus on how PTAs felt. And in Indiana, I'm allowed to vote as an individual. And it's quite a unique experience to vote both ways and understand like the responsibility that we've been given the privilege of to have.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll make a comment on you said something a moment ago about how PTAs felt, and you and I went through a phase of the PTA caucus where there was a lot of feeling, and I think we did a really nice job over the years, and there were so many that contributed to this, but we changed the tone of the room from feeling to action, execution, and leadership. And I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of times when there's so much emotion and feeling in the room, we tend to get in our way or our judgment gets clouded. And I think the groups that I was fortunate enough to work with over the years not only taught me a lot, but they embrace the idea of we have to remove excuses, we have to remove barriers, and we have to lead in the best way that we can. And that's where the conversations in my mind really started, and that's where we began to develop relationships as colleagues, not as PT PTA. We're all here trying to do the same thing. And that's what I saw kind of evolve over the years, and I still see it. And I was fortunate enough to be able to stay in Portland for House of Delegates this year, not as a delegate, just sitting in the gallery and witnessing the conversations and how the process went. And by the way, Dr. McGee, he did such a great job running the running the house this year, which he always did. But just seeing how things have evolved. And yes, there's still emotion and feelings, but the more we can do to get that out of the conversation and just look at facts and reality, that I think the better we're going to do. Because when we get emotional as a group, we're all strong-willed, all of us. Uh, when we get emotional, then that weakens our ability to progress forward.
100%. And I think you and I've had this conversation not on this podcast, but 100 times. Like the best thing we can ever do is like no longer be perceived as PTs or PTAs, but as association members,
Yeah.
and realize like the work you and I do on a daily basis is not for the betterment of one part of our profession, but it is for the betterment of our profession and trying to drive it forward into new areas where we can grow and be the primary care musculoskeletal expert that physical therapists and PTAs as their extenders should be.
Yes.
So with that, it makes me want to go two directions on the conversation. So I'm going to go this one first, so we can kind of wrap up the House of Delegates portion. For anyone who doesn't know, a couple years ago there was a bylaw change that allowed PTAs to now be slated to run for the board of directors. And David is the first one to get that honor. So take us through that journey, if you don't care.
We're just at the beginning right now, but very humbled to be slated. I think that's a great honor, and just to see who I'm slated to run against, another great honor. A pretty good friend on the slate with me, but I think it is just another step in our evolution as an association to look at ourselves as association members, association leadership, and so to me, it's a great honor. Uh, but I'm really excited, just given the strategic plan of APTA, knowing all of the things that face us ahead. It just excites me more. Knowing that our number one priority is payment, and improved payment leads to so many things, right? It leads to the student loan issues. It leads to the student debt issues. It leads to research. It leads to us being able to serve additional people out in the communities that we need to serve. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about what the board has done to kind of develop that, what the House has done to develop that, and I think I can contribute. When I look at my professional world, uh, this fits. When I look at being able to have worked in 30 states or so over the last, 27 years, it fits. And so I think I have a lot to contribute. I'm looking forward to the process. Like I said, it's very early. It's different than years past. It's not standing in front of a room of 100 plus people 4 different times, answering questions. It's a virtual process. So I'm just excited to be in the room, to represent the profession, not as a PTA, but as a leader.
No, right, 100%. And I, from a personal point of view, like I'm excited to see you go into this journey, not as not as a PTA, but knowing you as a leader, a private practice owner, a CEO, and someone who is visionary on where we can be in this field. And so that is like a huge advantage, I think, to where we need to go as an association and as a profession to drive payment, to drive changes in healthcare.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So with that being said, like the next part that I think people don't really understand is FSBPT and how your work in FSBPT kind of aligns with our missions of protection. So, like, walk us through for anyone who doesn't really has the experience of understanding FSBPT, other than the board exam. Walk us through like how service has been in that.
Yeah, it's been great. I was appointed to the board in 2014, I believe, and
To the Tennessee licensure board, correct?
yes, to the Tennessee Licensure Board, which is a nice process. I mean, the governor appoints you, so you go through an interview, and it's kind of an interesting thing. But so the first year, I thought, okay, I'm gonna go in and learn and try to understand what's going on. I did a lot of that, but I think our first meeting was like a trial. And so I was thrown into the fire pretty quick. But it was interesting to learn that dynamic of, okay, Dave, you can no longer advocate for the profession here in one side. You have to begin looking at the public. And so I think that was the biggest learning for me, is doing that little bit of a switch. But I quickly learned that it's about bringing people together. So again, brought the association into our meetings, and they're at every meeting now. They can get up and give advice and thoughts and speak, and sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't. But it's very similar in my mind to what an association's responsibilities were. You have your guardrails, you have your rules and your regulations, and you try to live up to those the best you can. And then you make a decision. So the service there, I've been able to serve on multiple committees, some compliance committees, sexual misconduct committee, and then got involved back in 2018, 2019 in the PT Compact when that became a reality for PTs. And fortunately for Tennessee, I believe we were the second state. I think Oregon beat us out by just a few days. So, but really then transitioning to how do we get this, you know, across state compact privilege? How do we not only implement it, but how do we set rules and guardrails and guidelines around that? So, been very fortunate to be in the compact for many years, and I currently am in my second term as vice chair of the PT Compact Commission, and great group of people, a lot of different opinions, but it's still the bottom line is we still come together at the end of the day and try to advance what we're doing for the public. And I think those are the only, that's the only difference. You just have to kind of put it in your head is I'm not here for PTs and PTAs and students at this point. I'm here to make sure they understand how to do their job within the guardrails or the statutes practice act that we have.
Yeah, and I would probably disagree with you a little bit and say there's overlap there because as the FSBPT helps define and set those guardrails and how it's implemented on a state licensure level and things like that, like what we're really doing is leaving the blueprint for practice. And I think APTA is the best version of how to demonstrate practice at the ethical level of taking it to the next level with the code of conduct and standards of practice and even you see it bleed into the um, yeah, now I'm blanking on the word, the um, ah, I'll think of the word eventually, but the kind of like uh, founding documents of like how we treat certain conditions and things like that, and going forward like that within that. And I think there's just such an overlap that like they're two distinct different areas, but I think at the end of the day, they're both trying to better the profession so that we have the ability to really use the education we have in the profession effectively.
Yeah. And I heard a great statement. I was at the Payers Forum in Portland here a few weeks ago, and one of the speakers said, we've heard for years practice at the top of your license, and I really loved what she said of practice at the top of your education, because your license is the first step. Your education goes on and on and on and on, and if you're not becoming better year over year, that's problematic. That creates apathy and stagnation, and I think if we can continue to practice at the top of our education, then we are protecting the public, but we're also advancing the profession.
100% agree. 100% agree. So, as we start to wrap up, one last question for you. What has been the biggest leadership lesson you've learned in life? And what keeps you going in that leadership journey throughout your career?
That's a big question. Yeah, I think the biggest leadership lesson I've learned in life is you have to be willing to take risk You have to be willing to be vulnerable and put yourself out there. And you're not always going to make the right choice. Um, but you have to be willing to get up. You have to be willing to kind of continue to move forward. You also have to have a strong belief in what you're working towards. And so for me, that's the biggest probably lesson. What keeps me going? I feel like I have a tremendous drive, and that drive is fueled by the people that I interact with every day. So what keeps me going? It's my well, my great wife who has stood by me for all these years to allow me to do all this stuff, but also the people that I interact with every day, my team, my colleagues, the folks within the association, within FSBPT, just being able to have conversations with them, come out with a, maybe a different opinion and listen to what they're saying. And I think that's the biggest thing that keeps me going is being able to continue to interact with people that love this stuff as much as I do.
No, 100%. So for anyone that's listening and they want to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Best way is email. So it's pretty simple. It's all lowercase, David Harris at pro-pt.net.
So with that, David, I want to thank you for joining us today on the APTA Academy of Leadership and Innovation podcast. I definitely think this is another example where leadership advances strategy and innovation drives our profession forward. We hope that this discussion today equips you to move further with clarity, influence, and purpose. So until next time, continue shaping the future of physical therapy with intention and impact. Thank you,
Thanks,
David.
Sean. Thank you.